Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to be repotting my ZZ plant here. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about when to repot, how to make repotting nice and quick and simple for you, and then how to keep your plant happy in its new home. So let me get right to it. Thanks so much for watching. So when should you repot your ZZ plant? Ideally, you're repotting in a period of growth, so spring or summer months. But this plant is pretty tolerant of being repotted at any time. And you can look to the plant for signs of when it might be the right time for your particular plant to know when to repot. So one of the key signs will be that it is outgrowing its pot. You can see here that this is literally pushing itself out of the pot. It's making a mess where I had it before, and it literally is screaming for a new pot. On top of that, the pot itself is no longer round. It's kind of oblong and wonky. I can feel it. I can literally feel it on the edges here, pushing out of the pot. So it is screaming for a new home, and it's going to be very happy to have one very soon. You can also look to the bottom of the plant. In some cases, you may see roots coming right out of the bottom of the pot, and that would be another indicator that it is looking for a new pot. So there's a few things that you can look for to know when is the right time to pot your ZZ plant. So what are we going to need? I'm going to be using a cactus and succulent potting mix. You're going to need a shovel. You may also need a pair of scissors. This thing is really stuck in here, so I'm not sure that I'm not going to have to dismantle my pot with a pair of scissors. And then you need a new pot. So you're not going to want to go too much bigger than the current pot, just a size or two up to give it some breathing space. So I'm going to be using this. And you're also going to want to make sure that your pot has drainage holes so that it is not sitting in water. So I'm going to be using a cactus or succulent potting mix. And this one actually says ZZ plant right on it. So I know I'm using the right stuff. Now I'm going to be doing this inside today. I would rather be doing this outside so I can kind of move the soil that I'm not using into the grass or garden. But it is a chilly day and I'm going to be doing this inside and just make sure that I very much clean up my mess afterwards and sterilize my tabletop after I'm done. You can try to remove the plant from the pot just by kind of squeezing it and seeing if it'll come out. I'm going to grab one of these big guys. Oh, nice. Okay, well that was easier than expected. No longer need my scissors. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this pot. Okay, now I'm going to loosen the soil away from the roots. And really, I'm going to try to use as much new soil as possible. My goodness, it's really packed in here. All the soil is very stiff. And I don't want to harm any of the roots. So I'm just going to kind of wiggle this around. You can see there's one of the rhizomes right there. And then all these longer roots as well. If you'd like to divide the plant and make a couple new plants from this, this is a perfect time to do it. You're already dismantling it. You're already making it a little angry. It'll be happier in the end, but this is probably not too comfortable for this plant. You can see here that this is so compact. Now, of course, you can wear gloves for this. I'm not too worried. I'm going to wash my hands really nicely after this, so I don't mind getting my hands dirty for this little process. This is a good time to remove any of the dead material. I've got some dead leaves over here. This guy's coming off. Make sure that only the healthy stuff remains. Okay, so I've taken a bunch of the soil out. I've got a lot off, and I'm not going to remove all of the soil. I don't want to damage the roots too much, so I definitely kind of spread them out down here, but all up in here, I'm not going to dig too far because I don't want to cause any problems. If there's no rot, there's no disease in the plant and in the soil, then you don't have to remove all of the soil. So that's as far as I'm going to go for today, and I'm going to get the pot ready for its new buddy. I'm going to put this into my municipal green bin, but you definitely could put this into your garden as well. As long as you know there's no critters living in here that are going to go and join your garden. Sometimes things like that can be invasive, and we want to avoid adding invasive creatures to our natural ecosystem. So now we're going to figure out how much soil to add. I want to put a base of soil before I put my plant in. So I'm going to measure it. I want it to go so that the plant is not right at the top anymore, because I definitely don't want it trying to jump out as it was in its old pot. So I'm going to put it about an inch or two from the top, which looks like I need about 2 or 3 inches at the bottom. So I'm going to fill that with soil now. And because I saw that there's kind of like the opposite of a dome, I'm going to kind of make a dome in the middle for that space underneath my plant. All right, so I think that should do. That's to kind of help fill in that space. I'm going to put my plant in. Here we go. Yeah, that's going to sit really, really nicely. And now I'm going to fill in all around the edges to make sure there's lots of soil, kind of hugging this plant in nicely and keeping it nice and tight so it doesn't flop over. Now, I don't want to cover the rhizomes completely at the top, so I'm going to help clean that up after I add all the soil to the side. Okay, so there we go. Now I'm going to kind of push my fingers down on the soil. You can see that it's easily going down. I'm going to need to add more soil. I want this to be pretty compact, not nearly as tight as it was before, but definitely not very loose, so it can hold this plant up nicely. I'm going to kind of make sure it's standing up nice and tall. And here comes another round of soil. Okay, so that's a little bit better. It's not, my fingers are not going down as easily. Kind of just pushing on the edges there, making sure that some of the rhizomes are exposed to the air. It's not totally covered by soil. There we go. So nice and quick and simple, easy peasy. This thing is going to be so much more happy in this home, and it's going to be making much less mess on my bay window. Isn't this so much better? Oh my goodness, this is going to be so much happier in this nice pot. Now it's not going to fit into my decorative pot. Well, definitely not. So I'm going to have to get something new for that. In the meantime, I'm just going to use one of these pretty little plates, just in case there's any water that comes out of those drainage holes at the bottom. You don't want that spilling all over your counter or wherever you have your plants. So make sure that you have something to capture the water, but you definitely don't need a big decorative pot. That's just what I'm looking for in my house. I'm noticing here that it's a little dusty too. So I might just take a minute and kind of take a damp cloth and get some of this dust off before I put it back in its home, before I clean up all the mess it made. So my last step is to give it a good watering. Now I have started watering plants from the bottom by putting them in a little container like this. Anything will work as long as it can hold the water in there and that there's space for the plant. And I've just been putting water into the container here and letting it soak up from the bottom. Now I'm going to let this sit in the water for a little while, and then the water will come on up to the top. And when I feel that it's moist up here, I know that this is nice and watered. I'm doing this for a few reasons. One, there's less mineral deposits that go on the top of the plant. So I found that with my hard water, I get a little kind of white residue at the top. I also had a nasty case of thrips in the past. I dumped a whole bunch of my plants. I'll put a link to that terrible video up at the top in the card here. But ultimately, you can see stuff come out of the water. So if you have critters in there, sometimes you can see them in the water, and you can just monitor the soil a little bit better than when you're pouring the water on top of the soil. So that's my little trick for watering. By all means, if you want to water from the top, feel free to. Ultimately, this plant is not exactly a succulent, but it behaves like a succulent in its water needs. It wants a whole bunch of water at once, and then it wants to dry out nearly completely. So that's kind of the rotation. You're going to let it dry out, then you're going to kind of soak it. And that's what it would prefer. So you don't want to have constant water in the soil, because it could cause rot. If there's too much water, if it's sitting in water, then the roots will rot, and this will be very unhappy. So we want to make sure we avoid that. Keep this as happy as possible. Give it a little bit more sunshine than what it's been getting, because it's been leaning a bit. And hopefully this will be much happier in this new pot and behave itself a little bit better. We'll aim to repot this again in about 2 years, but until then, hopefully it'll stay a little bit less messy and look nice and lush. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found the video interesting and helpful. If I missed anything, if you have extra tips to share, please be sure to share those in the comments below so we can all learn from each other. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more gardening tips and lots of gardening adventures along the way. Thanks again, and happy gardening.